Hello, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to be diving into the top 20 diseases. For centuries, diseases have been mankind's greatest enemy, striking without mercy and leaving millions in agony. These are the 20 deadliest diseases ever recorded in no particular order, starting with number 20, Rabies, an unstoppable descent into madness. Rabies is a viral assassin that targets the brain, turning its victims into prisoners within their own bodies. It starts innocently, a tingling at the bite site, a mild fever. But soon, the virus tightens its grip, driving its host into a frenzy of uncontrollable aggression and paranoia. Muscles seize, the throat locks up, and even the thought of drinking water causes spasms so violent that victims choke on their own saliva. As the infection spreads, hallucinations become unbearable, leading to full-blown delirium. Then comes the paralysis, first in the legs, then creeping up the spine, until the lungs stop working. Once symptoms appear, death is certain. There is no cure. Number 19. Dengue fever, where your own body turns against you. Dengue fever, also called breakbone fever, earns its name by subjecting its victims to unbearable pain. It enters through a mosquito's bite, spreading like wildfire through the blood. Within days, the fever surges, the body aches, as if the bones themselves are shattering, and excruciating migraines set in. In severe cases, it transforms into dengue hemorrhagic fever, a living nightmare where the blood vessels rupture, causing internal bleeding so severe that victims begin vomiting dark, clotted blood. The skin becomes blotched with bruises, the gums bleed spontaneously, and organs start shutting down one by one. There's no antidote, no cure, only a desperate fight to keep the body from collapsing. Number 18. Cholera, the disease that drowns you from the inside. Cholera is an ancient killer, turning the body into a dehydrated husk within hours. Once ingested through contaminated water, the Vibrio cholerae bacteria unleash chaos in the intestines. The gut rapidly expels everything, water, nutrients, and life itself, through relentless, watery diarrhea. Victims suffer relentless cramps as their muscles dehydrate, their skin loses elasticity, and their eyes sink deep into their skulls. Without immediate hydration, the body goes into shock, blood thickens like sludge, and vital organs fail one by one. In pandemics, entire cities have been reduced to ghost towns as cholera wiped out populations with ruthless efficiency. Number 17. Anthrax, the silent bioweapon. Anthrax spores are invisible killers, lying dormant in the soil for decades until inhaled, ingested, or absorbed through the skin. The most deadly form, pulmonary anthrax, begins with mild, cold-like symptoms. Then, without warning, the lungs fill with thick, bloody fluid, suffocating the victim from the inside. The bacteria release toxins that attack every organ, turning the body into a battlefield of inflammation and internal bleeding. Gastrointestinal anthrax is just as merciless, eating through the stomach lining, causing excruciating pain, vomiting of blackened blood, and an agonizing death. Even with antibiotics, survival is rare. Number 16. The Black Death, the great equalizer of death. The Black Death, caused by Yersinia pestis, wiped out nearly half of Europe's population in the 14th century. Once bitten by an infected flea, the bacteria attack the lymph nodes, causing them to swell into grotesque, pus-filled buboes. Victims writhe in agony as their skin blackens from internal hemorrhaging, their breath stinks of decay, and their organs rot while they are still alive. Some forms of the plague spread even faster. Pneumonic plague infects the lungs, causing people to cough up blood and die in days, while septicemic plague turns the bloodstream into a septic wasteland. Entire families perished overnight, and cities became mass graves. Number 15. Tuberculosis, the slow, wasting death. Tuberculosis is a relentless killer that has plagued humanity for centuries. The bacteria attack the lungs, causing them to deteriorate into a necrotic, blood-soaked mess. Victims develop a persistent hacking cough, their breath rattling with each desperate gasp. Over time, the disease spreads to other organs, consuming the body from the inside out. Patients waste away, their ribcages protruding from their skin as they drown in their own bloody mucus. TB claimed millions before the advent of antibiotics, and even today, drug-resistant strains continue the slaughter. Number 14. Malaria, the parasite that hijacks your blood. Once bitten by an infected mosquito, the Plasmodium parasite invades red blood cells, multiplying until they burst. The result? Cycles of agonizing fever and chills so intense that victims feel like they are freezing to death, followed by sweats so profuse they nearly drown in their own fluids. The brain swells, leading to seizures and coma. The parasite clogs tiny blood vessels, starving organs of oxygen. Left untreated, it is a drawn-out, agonizing death. Even today, malaria kills hundreds of thousands every year. Number 13. Ebola, a hemorrhagic nightmare. Ebola doesn't just kill, it destroys. The virus hijacks the body, attacking blood vessels until they burst like ruptured pipes. Victims experience agonizing fevers, followed by unrelenting internal bleeding. Their eyes fill with blood, their gums dissolve, and their organs liquefy into a black sludgy mass. The skin peels away in sheets, revealing raw flesh underneath. As the virus spreads, it turns entire villages into graveyards soaked in blood, wiping out families before they even know they're infected. Death isn't just possible, it's almost certain. Number 12. Smallpox, the disease that scarred history. Smallpox didn't just kill, it tormented. Victims were consumed by a raging fever, their bodies erupting in thousands of pus-filled blisters, each one throbbing with unbearable pain. These pustules split open, oozing foul-smelling fluid as the infection dug deep into the flesh. Some victims bled from their eyes, others rotted alive, their skin peeling away in patches. Survivors, if they were lucky, were left permanently disfigured, their bodies scarred beyond recognition. But most never got the chance. Smallpox wiped out entire civilizations, slaughtering hundreds of millions before it was finally eradicated. Number 11. African sleeping sickness, a slow, waking death. One bite. That's all it takes. The tsetse fly injects a parasite that turns the brain into its playground, hijacking the nervous system with nightmarish precision. At first, the victim experiences fever and fatigue, but soon, the real horror begins. Uncontrollable muscle spasms twist their limbs, their speech slurs, and hallucinations blur the line between reality and nightmare. Then comes the deep, inescapable sleep. Not rest, but the brain's final surrender. As neurons short-circuit, the body enters a coma-like state, where seizures and neurological collapse follow. Without treatment, there is no waking up, only a slow, agonizing descent into death. Number 10. Yellow fever, a viral executioner spread by mosquitoes. A single mosquito bite is all it takes to unleash yellow fever's reign of terror. The virus burrows into the liver, rotting it from the inside and turning the victim's skin a sickly, jaundiced yellow. Then comes the internal hemorrhaging. The body drowns in its own blood, filling the stomach until victims vomit thick, blackened clots. Organs begin to shut down one by one, the kidneys cease function, and the brain swells with inflammation, pushing the victim into delirium and violent seizures. The lucky ones die quickly, the rest writhe in agony, their bodies collapsing under the weight of their own decay. Number 9. Nipah virus, one of the deadliest brain infections known to man. Nipah doesn't just infect, it invades, turning the brain into its personal torture chamber. The virus, often carried by bats and pigs, spreads silently before striking like a viper. Victims are consumed by an unrelenting fever, followed by a descent into violent seizures, hallucinations, and brain swelling so severe it crushes the skull from the inside. Their minds erode into delirium, their bodies convulse uncontrollably, and then coma. The final stage is silent, merciless, as the brain shuts down organ by organ, leaving nothing but lifeless flesh in its wake. With a terrifying 75% fatality rate, Nipah doesn't just kill, it ensures no one escapes intact. Number 8. MERS, a brutal respiratory killer. MERS doesn't just infect, it strangles. This deadly coronavirus, often spread from camels to humans, tears through the respiratory system with merciless efficiency. Victims feel their chests tighten as their lungs fill with thick, suffocating fluid. Breaths become ragged gasps, but no matter how hard they fight, oxygen slips away. Fever ignites the body, organs begin shutting down, and within days, the lungs collapse under their own weight. In the final moments, victims choke on their own secretions, their bodies starved of air, as MERS claims another life. Number 7. SARS, COVID-19's deadlier predecessor. SARS is a merciless executioner, striking the lungs with unrelenting fury. What begins as a mild fever escalates into a full-scale respiratory assault. The virus inflames the lungs, drowning them in thick mucus and pus until every breath is a desperate, gasping struggle. Victims feel as if they're suffocating from the inside, their oxygen levels plummeting, their bodies starving for air. As their condition deteriorates, they become dependent on ventilators, but even machines can't always keep them alive. With a higher fatality rate than COVID-19, SARS strikes fast, kills brutally, and leaves no room for second chances. Number 6. The Spanish flu, a pandemic that killed millions in months. The Spanish flu wasn't just a virus, it was a mass executioner, killing with unprecedented speed and cruelty. This brutal strain hijacked the body's own defenses, turning the immune system into a weapon of self-destruction. Lungs flooded with fluid, victims drowned in their own inflammation, their lips turning blue from oxygen starvation. The worst part, the young and healthy died the fastest. Their strong immune systems triggered a catastrophic storm of inflammation, shredding lung tissue beyond repair. Blood foamed from their mouths, their bodies convulsed, and in mere hours, they were gone. By the time it burned through the population, over 50 million were dead, making it one of the most devastating pandemics in human history. Number 5. HIV, AIDS, the slow, unstoppable killer. HIV doesn't kill quickly. It watches, waits, and destroys from within. This insidious virus targets the immune system, dismantling it piece by piece until the body is completely defenseless. What starts as mild symptoms spirals into a living nightmare. As the virus progresses into AIDS, once harmless infections become merciless executioners, pneumonia chokes the lungs, skin eruptions rot the flesh, and even a simple cold turns lethal. The body wastes away, muscles shrivel, and the victim withers into a shell of their former self. With no cure, AIDS has claimed tens of millions of lives, making it one of the deadliest pandemics in history, a disease that kills not with speed, but with inevitability. Number 4. COVID-19, a global catastrophe. COVID-19 didn't just infect, it invaded. This virus strangled the lungs, leaving victims gasping for air as their own immune system betrayed them. It triggered massive inflammation, filling the lungs with thick mucus, drowning victims in their own secretions. But it didn't stop there. Blood clots formed like ticking time bombs, causing strokes, heart attacks, and organ failure. The virus ravaged the body from the inside out, leaving survivors with crippling aftereffects, and for many, there was no escape. It swept across the world, killing millions, overloading hospitals, and bringing entire nations to their knees. A virus that didn't just take lives, it reshaped history. Number 3. The Justinian Plague, history's deadliest outbreak. The Justinian Plague didn't just wipe out, it obliterated. This bubonic plague swept through the Byzantine Empire, killing up to 50 million in just a few years. It began with searing fevers, followed by painful, swollen buboes that grew to the size of softballs. As the bacteria flooded the bloodstream, victims suffered violent convulsions. Their skin turned black, and gangrene consumed their limbs. The air was thick with the smell of death, as entire cities were decimated by the pestilence. The disease spread like wildfire, carried by fleas on rats, and within days, it claimed entire populations. No one was safe from its insidious grip. Noble and peasant alike fell to its wrath. Entire regions were left in ruin, with the Byzantine Empire itself nearly destroyed. A plague so vicious, it reduced civilizations to ash. Number 2. The Antonine Plague, an ancient viral pandemic that ravaged the Roman Empire. The Antonine Plague didn't just sweep through, it devastated. Spreading like wildfire through the Roman Empire, this viral terror left victims covered in painful, oozing boils. It began with high fevers, shivering, chills, and head-splitting headaches. But that was just the beginning. As the virus took hold, the skin erupted in blackened, swollen blisters, some so large they would burst. Victims would cough up blood, their lungs slowly drowned in their own fluids. The worst part? There was no cure, and entire communities collapsed, leaving cities eerily empty. It's estimated the plague killed up to 10 million, decimating the Roman Empire at its peak, striking down soldiers and civilians alike. The disease spread fast, killing without mercy, leaving behind a world forever scarred by its wrath. Number 1. The Russian flu, one of the first global pandemics. The Russian flu wasn't just a disease. It was a global scourge, sweeping across the world in a tidal wave of misery. This virus tore through cities, infecting millions in its wake. It attacked the lungs with vicious ferocity, causing viral pneumonia so severe that victims suffocated in their own fluids. The infected would cough up bloody mucus, struggling to breathe, as their lungs filled with thick, gurgling fluid. Hospitals overflowed, the sick lying packed together, all fighting to stay alive. The death toll surged into the millions, and those who survived often wrestled with long-term damage to their respiratory systems. The Russian flu spread faster than anyone could imagine, taking down entire cities in mere weeks. It marked the beginning of a new era of pandemics, forever changing the world with its devastating grip. These diseases didn't just take lives, they reshaped history, devastated civilizations, and reminded humanity of the fragile line between life and death. Which of these diseases do you think was the worst of all time? Let us know in the comments section down below. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps out my channel. Thanks everyone, and have a good one.